I'm not a racist, preach the teacher. You still they never had this. Number one, them wanna run about the gun. I wasn't licensed to have one. The minute they see me, fear me. I'm the epitome, a public enemy. Use, abuse, without screws. I refuse to blow fuse. They even had it on the news. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Back when I wrote y'all, yes.
There's a new poll out that says that 50% of white women are leaning towards Trump. So there's a new poll, the gender divide, white men 58% for Trump, white women 50% for Trump. Among blacks and Latinos, overwhelmingly men and women are going in the same direction, despite what you may hear on YouTube or on different social media websites. 50%. That's wild to me, that after we've seen what does that say about Missy Ann and her handmaids? Because I mean, you have to kind of lean that way, right?
Right. It's interesting when you look at the polling. It tells us that white women care deeply about reproductive access, like reproductive health, right? And so that's a high priority. And yet, they are considering voting for a person who has all but guaranteed that abortion will continue to be inaccessible, that lives will be lost, that healthcare access will be diminished. And it makes you wonder what else is going on, to your point. But we know what's going on. We know that there's a racial caste system in this country that calls for white women specifically to participate in a way that is subservient to the interests of white men. And we've seen this time and time again, where white women very specifically vote against their interests. And I'm so glad you said what you said about black people, black men. Like, there's all this conversation about black men voting for, but we're looking at 80+% of black men will vote for Vice President Kamala Harris. Like black people at large will vote at 85 to 90% for Vice President.
So why does the media? Because I actually broke down the numbers of eligible.
Yep.
And what we ended up looking at is less than 1%.
Wow.
Less than 1%. Why? So every time the media asks the question, it's nefarious.
Yeah.
Because we're spending a lot of time trying to convince less than one. Let them vote for Trump.
Right.
If it's 1.6%, go ahead. Go. Let's not waste our breath on trying to convince 1.6% of the electorate to wake up and do the right thing, because most of us are doing the right thing for us, for our future.
Right.
Right. And I've been saying this election is not political at all. It's not about policy, because most of the people calling up, even supporting Trump, can't list policies other than illegals. That's what we're getting a lot of immigration talk, when most of us are not impacted at all, unless some horrible governor from Texas or Florida sent busloads of people into your community. And if you live in Arizona, but all of the Arizona mayors are supporting Kamala Harris, because the Biden-Harris administration has actually done a good job. ICE likes Biden-Harris over Trump.
Yep.
The agents that have to be on the borders have said they prefer the way it's being handled under Biden-Harris. So I'm not out there. They are. So we should listen to them.
Yeah, your listeners would know that the Biden administration tried to actually equip them with more support so that they could handle things happening at the border, particularly like drugs coming across the southern border. And it was Donald Trump that blocked that effort, that called up Congress people, folks in Congress, and told them, don't support this. So I think it's abundantly clear who has a plan and who has concepts of a plan. And it's interesting that we're still having this conversation. And to your point, like, it's not really about policy. It's not really about like what they plan to do. It's about something deeper. And I'm glad that we're starting to get at that.
In your cipher, Garrison, what's the biggest issue that's coming up?
I think so. There's some polling that came out recently that I think was really, really revelatory and articulated what I've been talking to black voters about specifically. A lot of black people are, especially low income black people, they do have this sense that there is what's been called rightful cynicism. This idea that, like, hey, I've been living in the hood. I've been living in like these low income areas forever, and it was no change under Clinton and no change under Bush, and it was still the hood under Obama, and it was still in bad shape under Trump, and it's been bad shape under Biden. And so now you're telling me that I have to vote, and that's going to change my material conditions. But many Americans, not just black people, many Americans have been living under the thumb of capitalism for a very long time. They've been feeling that pinch for a very long time. And it's so for me, what I'm seeing is there's a kind of apathy, a weariness to say that, like, it just feels like, okay, I cast this vote. Will things really change for me? And that's when I think it's important for people to talk about the tax credit for newborns. I think it's important to talk about all of these different kind of plans that folks have to make the material conditions of everyday Americans better. But I do understand where they're coming from. And I think we have to exercise a lot more empathy for that feeling of just like, man, nothing has really changed and maybe nothing will change.
I vacillate between having empathy and disgust because part of the disgust is the level of misinformation, the campaign, because it's a willful campaign. I'm watching it. I'm watching it play out. The bot farms and it's just, just put a little bit of yeast in and they know where to plant it. And that thing becomes like a behemoth and you're trying to like fight through the nonsense. You're like, where are you getting this information? And then it's so many, that it becomes very wearisome to even fight against it. You know what I'm saying? So I hear you. I want to have compassion for people who are just ignorant, but your ignorance is your responsibility. I feel like you could do better. You shouldn't want to be ignorant. There used to be shame around being ignorant. Now it's like, everybody's like, I'm ignorant and I don't care. It's my opinion.
No, you're right.
My days are cooler, nights are warmer, and I put the blame on you. Time moves slow, but my heart beats faster. When these eyes are looking right at you, you give me something to believe in, just what I needed. You're the closest.